Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Basics. I know it's been a couple of weeks. I hope everyone is well. I am Moe ElHussini, and I am here with my dear friend George Elias. Hey, George, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
Doing great, Mo. How are you?
I'm good. Wrapping up my Christmas to-do list. Are you done with your gift shopping?
I haven't even started.
Really?
I'm way behind this year. Way behind.
Yeah, no, I think I have. I think one more day I should be done. I started really early. Are you off from work or are you working the next week or two?
Oh, well, I'm gonna try to take some time off. So
Nice.
at my day job, I'll share something with you.
What's up?
I I get about 4 weeks worth of vacation to
Hmm.
and they'll even let me take 5 or 6 or whatever I want. There's really no limit. All year I've taken 19 hours. I can't believe it.
Are you kidding? That's it?
Uh,
That's it? All year?
yeah, yeah, all year. I don't know what happened. So I'm gonna try to take a few days off, but yeah, it's use it or lose it. So
No, use it.
that's just the way it goes. Yeah.
All right. So lesson learned to the listeners, don't do that. Use your
Yes,
vacation days.
exactly.
No, in all seriousness, man, you need some downtime. Take advantage of it. Try to take a couple of days. I can't
I,
believe that.
li- Listen, it wasn't on purpose that the year got away from me.
I
But
know, I know.
next year, next year I'll have a better plan.
The year does go by quick. Last thing I'll tell you real quick. I mean, I was at Burlington the other day getting some things. They already have Valentine's stuff up. I'm like, slow down. Like, and then it's Easter, and then it's Memorial Day, and then next Thanksgiving. Anyway, it's all good. Look, I remember last time we met, we were talking about body language, right? That's kind of like I think we had a couple of episodes. We were talking about body language. Do you want to continue with that? Shall we continue talking about body language?
Yeah, I think we could probably wrap up body language here, and I think we hit body language from a few different aspects.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, right, even last time we talked about body language over the phone, which I thought was an interesting concept.
True. I remember
Um,
that. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, what we said last time, we said that we
Mhm.
wanted to continue with body language,
Okay.
but something a little bit different. Some things that have to do with maybe formal events or speaking engagements, interviews, and the role that body language has. Um, even at a networking event, right?
Yeah.
How does that um, help you be successful or not?
Nice. You know what? Why don't we? Yeah, let's start with that. Let's start with tell me your thoughts. Let's talk about at presentations or networking events. Start with whichever one you want. Let's focus on those. I know because last couple of times we talked about interviews. Let's give some time if it's okay with you, and then we can come back to interviewing at the end. But let's talk about what are your thoughts? What's the link between, because that's not something that a lot of people think about. So let me ask you this question to kick it off. What is in your mind the link between body language in general and a networking event? You're walking through the door, you parked your car, you're walking in, and there's a bunch of people standing around. What's the relationship? How does that factor in the body
So,
language?
so you just mentioned walking to the room, right? Just starting from the beginning there.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed that some people, when they walk into a room, they're noticed, like the whole room
Yeah.
notices,
Hmm.
and, right? And I think that aspect of it is very interesting. So there's just a way that some people know how to enter a room, and I I was thinking about it. I'm thinking that maybe it's how they walk in with confidence, and what I mean
Hmm.
by that is back straight, shoulders back. You walk through the door with your eyes forward. As soon as you get into the room, you scan the room and look around to where you'd like to go, and you head over to an interesting place, right? Or to go talk to somebody that
Mm-hmm.
you've chosen out of the group. And I think some people just know how to enter a room, and some people, maybe a less confident person might walk in almost like head down, looking at the floor, shoulders curled, and
On
they
their
head to the
phone,
corner. They almost hide. Yeah,
texting
on
their
their
phone.
phone,
Yeah,
hiding,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. You know?
That's what I was going to ask you, because what you said at the beginning, and you started answering my second question, what you said at the beginning about how you walk in with confidence and look around. Some people might listen to that and think like, you know what, instinctively, that's what I do. So what I want you to continue with, George, is what shouldn't we do? So looking down on the floor, don't walk in texting on your phone without making, like eye contact with anybody. What else should you not do? Should you stand by yourself when you walk in at a table? Should you walk towards a group? What things come to your mind that maybe you shouldn't do?
So this is going to sound, certain silly things.
Hmm.
But if you're going to a networking event, literally to meet people, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's why you're there, right?
Yes.
What I've seen that is interesting is oftentimes networking events will have food and beverages, or maybe a little buffet, some snacks. I would say a big no-no in my book would be to head right over to the buffet and fill your hands and your face full of food. You're
Yeah.
literally at that point putting a barrier between you and your ability to talk. You're
True.
putting a
Good
barrier
point.
between
Yeah.
you and your ability to shake hands. I would say that even if a networking event is going to have food, if you think you're going to be hungry, go and have a snack, but before you show up, meet all the important people in the room. Don't worry, the food will be there when you're done, and if not, there's plenty of places to eat outside the event, right? No,
Yeah.
you're not going to starve.
To have
So
just like a drink in the
you know
hand, maybe, and just walk around ready to make contact with other people.
maybe I would say a drink in the hand is okay. I would say better yet would be nothing in your hands, because
Mm.
because if you're at a networking event, what you really want to do is to be able to shake hands and hand out your business cards.
Yeah.
So it becomes very awkward with food and or beverages. I mean, if you're legitimately thirsty, I think that you can manage maybe with a drink, and you can put it down on
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
table, and you can still work it out. Um, but just be aware that if you're there to meet people and you want to make good eye contact, it's hard to make good eye contact when your focus is in your plate of appetizers or something.
Got it. Look, one. I don't want to say last question, but one last question that I have, and then we can move on to presentations if you want, or we can continue talking about networking. But one of my some of I go sometimes to events for business coaches, right? And we get together. One of them has a strategy that's a little different than what me and you were talking about. And it took me some time to process it, and I still don't know how I feel about it. He says when he walks into an event, right, a networking event, he finds an empty table and he sits at it just by himself. And he waits for people to come sit down to talk with him. Sometimes I feel like, you know what, if this event is 2 hours and I'm going to do this and it'll take 15, 20 minutes, half an hour for someone to maybe think about coming to sit down at the table, it's wasted time. But he actually thinks it's a really good strategy. He loves doing that. He just sits with confidence, with eye contact, with a smile on his face. So, he gives that impression that, hey, I'm approachable, but he does not walk around. He just waits for someone to come sit with him. What do you think about that?
Um,
It's
I have
different,
mixed
right?
feelings. Yeah, I have mixed feelings. I think that for me, I would rather be the person that's in charge of going to
Yeah.
meet people that I want to meet.
Mm.
I find that oftentimes the most interesting people in the room, the people that really need to get spoken to, are
Yeah.
usually the ones standing with a crowd around them even.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
to take the opposite approach and to make yourself a destination is kind of interesting. What I'm curious about why it works for this individual, or even if he's telling himself it works because he doesn't want to stand, he'd rather sit. But let's say it really does work. There might be other tricks that he's doing. One is the smiling and the eye contact. The other thing that actually can help in your favor is the way you dress, right? That is kind of adjacent to body language, but how you dress. I've told people that I've gone to networking events and business events with a bow tie on, and
nice.
so there's some people that are really against the bow tie, but I'll just be honest with you, a well done, not like a clown bow tie, not the one with that takes pictures, right? Or has a squirt, like a
squirts water.
It's not gonna squirt. It's nothing like that. But like I hand tie a nice bow tie that goes with my outfit, and I find that it attracts people. People want to comment on the bow tie, right?
Nice.
And afterwards, I've seen people before. They're like, "Oh, you're the guy that had the bow tie on," right? People notice little things that are unusual, or a nice pocket square, right?
I do the funky socks kind of approach. I wear the funky socks.
No, but it becomes a conversation piece, and so you just put something on you that's a sign, right? You're not putting it as a sign because of course you don't want to look like a clown, right?
I get your point.
Appropriately, you become approachable. There's something to talk about. It could be as easy as wearing a pin of your favorite sports team. You now have something for somebody to comment on.
Yeah, and to end this point from my part, I think I was thinking about it while you're talking. Events where we end up sitting at round tables, I could see that maybe working, where I sit down and wait for random, so that I'm not targeting anybody, I'm welcoming everybody, and whoever wants to come sit. Maybe in that case, I could see it working too, where we're walking around, get our drinks, get our snacks, but then we end up sitting at a table to hear a speech or a talk or whatever. Then maybe I could see myself sitting at a table waiting for people to come sit down. But if it's an event where everybody's walking around, it's like an active event, I'm still thinking about it. I'm processing it. And I'll leave it up to the listeners to formulate their opinion. But
the other thing, just one more point about that, where you stand in the room ends up being important, right? So I'll make an example. I think standing near an entrance to a door where people have to pass through is not a bad strategy, right? If you really want to meet the most people possible, positioning your base of operations per se in an area that's frequented or people have to walk by is not a bad strategy to make sure you meet people, because there's going to be a natural flow to the room. And if you can figure out where the quote unquote currents are in that sea of people, standing in one of those currents is a way of maximizing your time and your space.
You just reminded me of something. One other point I want to make about this, and this is from a lesson that I learned. We should not try to underestimate or dismiss someone that's coming to talk to us that we think like, meaning there are some people that could be a good strategic partner, a good potential client, that may approach you, that don't have that aura or that presence around them and may come across as not too confident. Do not dismiss them and move on to the next person. Give anybody that approach you with a handshake or that wants to meet you, give them the time to get to know them, because I've had cases when I was starting out young and new, somebody would come up to talk to me, they would look nervous. They would look, they would have that nervous smile on their faces. I would give them a quick handshake, a quick nod, listen to them for a few seconds, and then move on. And then it turns out that it was a huge missed opportunity for me. So my point is, don't be quick to judge people. Yes, we should practice exactly everything we talked about. But in the actual event, when you are interacting with people, give people the time to get to know them, right? Regardless of how you perceive them, that initial perception, get to know them, talk to them, give them a fair share of time to to get to know them. Don't dismiss people too quickly when you're at a networking event.
So Mo, you reminded me of something that's kind of just an interesting idea. If you observe how very senior and experienced either business people or politicians react in crowds, the most successful ones, if you really look at what they do, and you can observe this on television at different events when they're shaking hands, they definitely do that. They don't just turn around. They actually take time with each individual person. And something that I want to point out, because now getting back to body language a little bit, they don't just have a set one smile, right? They just don't walk around with their teeth grinning all over the place, beaming in the room. They talk, they're serious, and then when they first meet the individual, they will shake hands,
eye
or maybe
contact,
reach out and touch the shoulder. They look directly in the eyes, and then they have this blossoming smile. They look in the eyes, and then the smile, the mouth goes from a regular maybe serious look to a I'm happy to see you look. And I think people notice that when you look somebody in the eyes and then the smile blossoms out of seeing them, it really makes for a great connection, as opposed to you just having a quote unquote plastic smile on and beaming it all over the room. Then your smile isn't individually special for each person. So I do think that having the ability to connect even with people that are less confident or less outgoing, you can actually end up with a special bond with that person where they feel extra comfortable with you because of those first few moments of how you met them.
And appreciative, because you're building rapport. It's kind of like your relationship, and you're showing that smile, that genuine smile that comes out eventually. It's based upon the discussion, so it makes the person feel, wow, like he appreciates me, appreciates the time, appreciates the discussion. Those little things add up. I agree with you. They add up to formulate that opinion that we have of others that we're talking with. Agreed. So, George, you're presenting to a group 2 times. One time it's 4 people, 6 people sitting at a conference table, and you walk into the conference room. And then another time you walk into an auditorium and there's 600 people standing in front of you. What do you do differently? Let me tell you real quick while you think about it, what I do, I'll tell you what I do in both cases. I try to use the real estate. I walk around a little bit. I'm not standing in one spot, right? I'm using my hands, not waving them like a bird, but I'm using them to kind of activate that interaction between myself and them. I'm still using positive energy, maybe not as much when I'm in a conference room as I would. I don't, kickstart that boost energy when I'm in a small room as I do when I'm in a big room with a lot of people. Maybe I kick in, infuse a lot more energy. But let me stop there. What do you think you would do the same or do differently in both scenarios?
So this is an interesting question, and I think it really depends on the room dynamics. Let's start with the conference room example. Let's just say it's anywhere from like a one-on-one to maybe a handful of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely on a one-on-one, I am not going to stand up and present, right? That's just seems a
Yeah.
little silly, right? In fact, I want to give them individual attention. I'll, if possible, I'll try to lean forward in my chair, show that I'm interested in them. I definitely don't try to read off the slides or something like that. I'm really more just talking to them or telling them the story or telling them about the business or what's needed to happen. I have, I'll tell you, in conference rooms of even maybe like 5 or 6 people, if it's an important presentation and there's slides being projected, I have stood up. And I know that's different than what a lot of people do. I will stand up. I do it from a presentation. I feel as though when you stand up, you command the room a bit more. So I'll do that on purpose, and I'll try to stand in front, and not in a way that blocks the slides, but maybe off to the side. But I won't move around a lot unless it's to make a point, right? I'll use my arms, my body to maybe match some of the story or some of the words that I'm saying, for sure. I would say from there on, the larger the room, the bigger my body language gets. Anywhere from walking around to using my arms. Like if I said the word big, I might spread my arms all the way out to show something big, right? Or if I said the word small, I might use my index finger and thumb together to show something small, right? So I'm using hand gestures to mimic the words. I think it helps people to understand.
And I was going to say, so what you're talking about now is even sometimes if you're with one person only, yes? Because I was going to say,
yeah,
which is fine. It's okay. Because I was going to say I disagree a little bit with you, because I was just thinking last month I met like in my coaching with a couple of clients where it was one-on-one. And I did what you said at the end now, which I agree with. I did actually stand up and present. If I have a presentation and I really get into it and I get interactive and I'm pointing at things up on the screen and then I come back in between, yes, I sit down. I bring up a slide after I say my piece. Sometimes maybe I could sit down and ask them what they think, comment with them, and so on, and talk with them. So it's a mix of. It could be a mix of both.
The only thing is that, with that one-on-one or the few, I think you got to play it by ear. You definitely want to get down on their level and not be standing over them all the time. Obviously, if you're making a presentation and it's being projected, then you stand up and you explain something, then you might sit down again. I agree with that. I also like the presentation style where you purposely don't project. And let's say you had a brochure or something, you might turn it around on the table and point them and walk them through the brochure and to look at certain things. I like that because it's a good focal point where you can direct their eyes and their and their thinking and walk them through something. I like that as well. But I'll be honest with you, for sure, the bigger the room, the bigger the audience, the bigger the presentation. You have to do it in order to connect with the entire group.
And give them something to focus on.
Yes, and for sure, situations that are very difficult for me to present is where I have a very large group and I can't see the people, right? For some reason, either blaring lights in my eyes, I can't see the audience, or
dark room.
Let's say it's a Zoom call and nobody's putting on their webcams. That's just a really, because then it's just the George Elias monologue, and that's just difficult to carry on for a long period of time.
Now, a dozen people in a conference room, I make eye contact with while I'm presenting. Like I circulate around people, making eye contact. Big room, 1,500, 100 people. What's your thoughts on eye contact then, connecting with the people?
I definitely am. I'm doing it. I'm finding people in the audience.
right?
I
Yeah,
am
me
presenting to
too.
them.
Mhm.
I'm gauging their eyes, their body language. Are they leaning forward? Are they
Mhm.
snoring? Are they on their phone? And I'm gauging my reaction, what I do, based
Yeah.
off of the consensus of the group. Um, I need to be in tune with the group, and to that
Mhm.
extent, your body language and the way you present yourself matters, right? Do you move around? Are you standing with confidence? Are you making eye contact? Are you smiling? Are you into the presentation? Because your emotions and the way you exude those emotions through your facial expressions and your body language will actually help the audience react and feel the same way that you do. So if you're bored in
Oh
your
yeah,
own
yeah.
presentation,
Mhm.
chances are the audience is bored, right?
You'll get a
If
whiff of
you're
it. Yeah.
excited, yeah, it's
Mhm.
true. If you're excited and happy and you're smiling and you're making eye contact and you exude that confidence, the audience
Mhm.
feels it. It really sets the mood for the room.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What else? What other points can you think about between both scenarios or?
So let me bring this other thing that I couldn't help thinking about, because you said a conference room with maybe a dozen people. What one of the things that happens in those sorts of groups is you'll end up with one or two people that might be the most senior people in the room.
Mhm.
Um, I might uh, start trying to figure that out quickly, like who are the leaders in the room, and be extra attentive to them, right? Or defer to them, because the body language of the other people in the room are going to show who's the real leader there. So try
Yeah.
to pick up on other people's body language. Um, Also, this might be a minor point here, but pointing, right? So if somebody asks a question, pointing at them with your index finger, I think is a big novice move. Don't point at people. It's
Agreed.
a lot of people get bothered by it.
Mhm.
I do like um, you can uh, sort of use your entire hand, not by
Palm
using
up
your index
and
finger, but
point
your
to them.
entire
Yeah.
hand, thumb
Mhm.
up. You say, "Oh,
Palm.
please," like, and invite them. You can
Yeah.
maybe make the motion for them to, like, "Oh, please say something." The other one that I like sometimes, and you can watch politicians do it, they kind of make a closed, a slightly loosely closed fist, and they kind
Mhm.
of point with their thumb. And I think that's a
Reaffirming.
pretty nifty trick. Yeah, it's really nice. Um, but what you do with your hands and gestures like that make a big difference. I would say that if you're at the conference table, let's say an interview where it's inappropriate to stand up and walk around the room, you're not presenting, you're interviewing. I would say there are certain power positions that you can put your hands in. For instance, you can connect all your fingers and thumb together with your
Mhm.
palms apart, maybe not quite with your elbows on the table, but maybe in a way, if you're trying to make a point, that's a very strong position. Um, Definitely don't hide your hands underneath the table, right? I think that's a big no-no in an interview. You want your hands plainly visible. It's a good idea to take notes at your own interview, right, of things that they're saying. So a pen in hand and a pad of paper, I think, is a good posture position to be in. Again, with your back straight, trying to make eye contact as much as possible,
Yeah.
smiling, um, right? Things like that really make a difference.
Agreed. And you know what other point? I'm going to take this from a different angle that I want to bring up to the listeners. You do not have to be a very outgoing, super sociable person to be good at presentations. There are a lot of great, great speakers that existed over history, believe it or not, that were very introverted, very not too sociable, but they gave amazing speeches and amazing presentations. And you can actually sometimes, if you watch on YouTube, some speakers, some people that talk, you could see the transformation that happens on their face when they get up on stage from being their self to being the presenter, the one giving the speech, right? Sometimes they go through that mental transformation, a switch that they click to start being in that presentation mode. My point is, it is something that you can practice. It doesn't mean you have to change your whole personality. Might take a little bit more work, but it can be done, right? It's just like practicing how to swim, riding a bike, how to do other things. You can practice becoming more seasoned at giving speeches or presenting. You just have to really think
Yeah.
about it.
So Mo, I completely agree with you, but I do think it gets better with practice, and I
Yes,
don't
of
think
course.
being a good speaker is necessarily something you're born with. I mean, certainly
Mhm,
some people are a bit more outgoing and they
mhm.
have the encouragement from the time they were little, maybe, and it really helps them along. Uh, I would say a good thing to do is, now that we have cell phones and stuff all around, make yourself present for a couple of minutes and record yourself on the iPhone and watch it. You'll
Yeah,
see things to make yourself better. Like I'll tell you a key thing I tell people all the time when they're presenting is, I'm like, oh, take your hands out of your pockets, right? The worst thing you could do
yeah,
is to have your keys or something in your pockets and rattle around. You're actually showing the audience that you're more interested in what's in your pocket than talking to them. So I would say, and if you have problems making big hand gestures, you know what? Hands at your side is perfectly fine. Stand there with confidence. It's perfectly fine. I like to move around, but
me too. Yeah. Hmm.
nervous shifting back and forth doesn't help, right? So
Yeah.
if your default isn't to walk around, then just plant your feet, don't lock your knees, but just, stand with some confidence, back straight, hands at their side, and talk. It's perfectly fine to present that way. And in fact, a lot of people prefer it instead of, so I know I walk around, and Mo, you said you walk around.
Yeah.
Just in terms of audience, some people that are hard of hearing and need to see your face would prefer it if you didn't walk around. I'm just saying, it's just a consideration. Stand there with confidence, hands
Hmm.
at your side, and make sure you are facing the audience all the time. Because if somebody's hard of hearing, they can't see your face, they're not going to understand what you're saying.
And don't look at your wristwatch if somebody's asking you a question or talking to you. Try to avoid looking.
Unless
Like if I need, huh?
unless they're asking what time it is, and then it's
I was
okay.
just going to say that, or if I really do sincerely need to know how much time I have left and I'm going to look at my watch, I say that's the reason why I'm looking. So, how much time do we have left? Am I running over the time scheduled? So, you have to show your intention while you're looking at your watch. We all know what happened with George Bush during the debate when he looked at his watch, right? It was his kiss of death. So, just always remember that. Do not look at the watch when you're, especially if someone's asking you.
So, one more thing I wanted to bring up, because we talked a lot about presentations, but I want to go back to the interview or the one-on-one,
Hmm.
or even like the networking event. Something that you can do, and again, body language wise, is you can mirror the other people's body language. Sometimes that works very well. If they have a certain hand position,
Hmm.
right? You can mirror their, as long as it's appropriate, of course, right? You can mirror their position. It's a way of building rapport. You're mimicking how they sit. Are their legs crossed? Well, if it's appropriate, maybe you can cross your legs too, or if they're leaning towards you, lean a little bit towards them, or lean a little forward. They'll lean a little forward. If you can get into this little thing where you're mimicking each other's posture, then you've built a lot of rapport, and it is almost like a mini team building.
Nice. Good point. Good point, George. Yeah. I think that does make some people connect well with others too. So it's a good point. Great, man. This was a really good discussion. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think we could, probably go on with
Yeah.
posture and facial expressions and body language forever and ever, but I think we did a
We get the
pretty
idea.
good job here at Back to Basics.
Yeah. No, so that's good, man. No, yeah, no, this was a good discussion. discussion and I enjoyed it. I took a lot of some takeaways out of it, some good takeaways. So yeah, great. No, I don't think I have anything else to add.
So why don't we wrap this up? And I think this is going to be our last podcast for this semester. So
For this year, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, for this year. We'll kick it off again in January.
Great.
Right. So anyway, thank you all for listening to this episode of Back to Basics on the Business Edge, brought to you by Feliciano School of Business at Montclair State University. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and welcome any feedback you have for us, including suggestions for future topics.
Thank you, George. Thank you, listeners. I wish everybody a nice and healthy and happy holiday season, and we will circle back with you in January. Take care, everyone.
Same here. Thanks, Mo.
Thanks, George. Take care, buddy.